In this episode of Get Real with Rajiv, I'm going to be answering questions around what is the difference between an incentive system and an increment system for the financial growth of your employees. I'm also going to be answering questions around, is it healthy to have multiple businesses? Also, the third question is around, how do you balance between work and relationships? And finally, the fourth question is around, how do you deal with the aspect as a startup where everything is dependent on you as a business owner? So for that, I want you to tune into episode number 45 of Get Real with Rajiv. Like every week, I'm going to be answering 4 questions, and today Bhakti is going to be the voice of your questions. So Bhakti, what's the first question?
Our first question is from Rohit Agarwal. We have a family-run business for 25 years. We were interested in setting a financial system in place for our employees. I wanted to know, should it be based on an incentive or a yearly increment we provide to them?
Well, Rohit, I want you to understand the difference between incentive and an annual increment. The way I see it is an annual increment is something that you give your employees for 2 reasons. One is with every passing year, you are rewarding them for their loyalty, for being with your organization. So an annual increment is due to them for that reason. Second, with every passing year, you are also factoring the element that there is inflation in the market and their cost of living is going up. So you want to make sure that you are paying them that annual increment so they can manage the cost of living in their own life. So in my head, an annual increment is due to every employee purely from the point of view of loyalty and to factor in inflation and the cost of living going up for them. Incentive, on the other hand, is performance based. Now, if you have direct roles like sales, where you can measure the performance and the result of every team member, then you can have a clear incentive structure. But for the indirect roles who contribute to the business, for the operational roles, someone in admin, someone in accounts, someone in production, someone in your operations who may not directly contribute to the top line of the business, for such people, it's always recommended to have a portion of the profits set aside as distributable bonuses to the team members, and that can become their incentive, and that incentive can be given out to them based on their individual contribution and their achievement of their personal goals within the business. So I would say an annual increment is more a loyalty increment, and incentives is more a performance based pay or increase for the contribution of people. So I think every business under ideal circumstances needs to create a system for both, so that you are showcasing to people that you are rewarding them for loyalty and supporting them for the increase in the cost of living, and you are also rewarding them for performance and contribution based on their individual roles and goals. So I would say, Rohit, it has to have a mix of both. The first one is necessary, the second one is subject to performance. That's how I would look at it in a healthy and win-win manner for a business owner and for the team members. So that would be my recommendation, Rohit. With that, let's move to the second question of the week. So Bhakti, what's the second question?
Our second question is from Sharath. We are just a startup and not even on board completely, and all of this pandemic took place. How should I cope up with all of this? Is starting 2 different businesses at the same time a good idea?
Well, Sharath, you've asked me 2 questions in one. The first is, how do you cope with the pandemic considering you're a startup and you are not even off the ground fully, based on what I understand from your question? Well, to answer that question, I would say what has changed. Probably there is a delay in your in the execution of the plans. There will be a delay in the business taking off from ground. So nothing much has changed apart from the fact that there is a delay, unless and until you feel that based on the product and service you're offering, the customer's buying pattern has dramatically changed, the way the customer buys, the channel has dramatically changed. Unless and until you don't see that kind of a drastic change, and I can't comment on that at this point of time because I don't understand what kind of startup you have, I think it's just a delay. Answering your second question, which is it healthy to build 2 businesses simultaneously? Let me tell you something. There are 2 kinds of people who build multiple businesses. The first kind of people who build multiple businesses are people who are not making enough money from their first business. So they think it's about diversification and having multiple streams of income. But the reality is this: when a person does not know how to build one business well and they add more businesses, they're only adding to their problems. They're not really solving their problem, because it's not like they're going to make money from multiple streams of income. That's a very fashionable new age way of saying, oh, you need to have multiple streams of income. The reality is most micro entrepreneurs do multiple things because they don't know how to make money out of the first thing, and that pattern kind of carries forward in the second venture or the third venture or the fourth venture. So I would say that don't be one of those desperate entrepreneurs who has multiple businesses and those multiple logos and company names just boost their ego on their business card. I can say this safely to you because I've been there in the first 8 years of my entrepreneurship journey. I was very proud of having 4 logos, but the reality was that not like I was a visionary entrepreneur who wanted to be a serial entrepreneur. It was just that my first business did not give me the kind of returns that I wanted, so I started a second one. The second one did not give the kind of returns I wanted, so I started a third one. I had these 4 logos and I had a title on my business card saying serial entrepreneur, but the truth was I was serially broke in all the businesses. So I think the first thing any entrepreneur needs to fix when they start a business is they need to learn what is the right strategy, what are the right systems, and what are the right skills required to build a scalable, profitable business. Now, once you crack that code one time for one particular business and you've built a scalable and profitable business, then you become a serial entrepreneur and start multiple businesses. It's a totally different story. So that's the second type of people. People who are serial entrepreneurs are people who have figured out the code of creating an idea, executing that idea, scaling that idea, and monetizing that idea. So unless and until you don't crack that code with one business, just adding more businesses to yourself is adding more trouble to yourself. So that would be my recommendation, my friend. Look at building one business at a time, be focused, build a team, build a system, build a strategy so that that business does not require you to be there operationally on a day-to-day basis. That's when you have the luxury to look at building a second stream of income and a second business for yourself. Otherwise, you will just be one of those entrepreneurs who's actually serially broke but is enjoying the ego trip of calling themselves a serial entrepreneur. I would not advise that at all. With that, let's move to the third question for the week, Bhakti.
Our third question is from Jagu. I agree that striking the right balance between goals and relationships is important. I truly love my friends and family, but I tend to spend less time with them and invest time in working on myself. How do I keep relationship and self-growth in check?
Well, Jagu, I think you've asked a very pertinent question, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to that question, where sometimes you feel that sense of guilt saying, am I disconnecting from my family and friends and just over-connected and over-plugged into my business? So from that point of view, let me tell you how I look at keeping things in check. Firstly, according to me, work-life balance is a myth, because in most people's head, balance is equal to 8 hours of work, 8 hours of family time and personal time, and 8 hours of sleep. That does not happen. Okay? Do relationships deserve time? Yes, relationships need time. I'm not one of those escapist entrepreneurs who says that relationships is not about the time you give, it's about the quality of the time you have. I think every relationship also needs the quantity and the right quality of time that you put in. Having said that, the best way of keeping yourself in check is instead of fighting for balance, look for clarity. Be clear about what do I want to achieve out of my business, what do I want to create in and experience in every relationship of mine, be it my spouse, be it my parents, be it my friends. So you need to have clarity, and that clarity needs to transpire into probably rituals or habits or really goals that you can create within relationships. Now most people would be like, how do you create goals within a relationship? It could be as simple as defining rituals. Rituals like, hey, you know what, we're going to make sure that we have every meal together at home, and it's not like my spouse has a meal when she wants and I have a meal when I want. That is a ritual. It's a simple ritual of spending quality time over a meal, over while you're breaking bread with each other. Or a ritual like before we go to sleep, we will have conversations. We'll just sit and chat and not just be plugged into the television. We'll sit and chat for at least an hour and catch up on our day. Now that is qualitative interaction. That's deep connection. Rituals like with your friends saying, okay, once a week or once in 2 weeks we will catch up for a poker night, if that, for the lack of a better thing to do together. But if you have clarity of rituals, Like I have friends with whom probably I don't catch up that often, but there are some rituals like, okay, we travel at least once a year together and take a vacation together. So I think clarity is more important than balance. Balance is overrated, clarity is ignored. But the moment you create clarity in every area of your life, what do you want to achieve in your business? What do you want to do to nurture those relationships with your family and your friends? What do you want to do to nurture your relationship with yourself? And having that clarity. When you have that clarity, then you have a sense of peace with yourself, and there's no guilt, there's no infighting that is happening. So create that clarity, my friend, and enjoy the process of that clarity. Don't expect 8 hours work, 8 hours personal life, and 8 hours of sleep. That doesn't happen for anybody. Life is not a clock. So just make sure you have clarity in every area of your life to create that check for yourself. As long as you're experiencing and doing things that you want to do with relevant people, you're doing good, my friend. That's how I would look at it. With that, let's move to the fourth and final question for this week. So Bhakti, what's the fourth question?
Our fourth question is from Shaunak. You say everything is dependent on the business owner is not good for the business, but when we start anew, we have to do everything ourselves. What are your thoughts on that, and how do we get out of this and make things not dependable on us?
Well, Shaunak, what I share is that it's not healthy for a business when every single activity is done by the business owner, only because if a business owner is involved in everything, then there will be consistency missing. If the business owner is responsible for marketing, sales, operations, accounts, human resources and management, then what ends up happening is that these activities happen only when there is a crisis in that particular department or area of the business. So that is very, very unhealthy, because that puts the business owner in a trap of survival. The only thing the business owner then focuses on is making enough money to be able to pay expenses and take some little money back home. That's not a game of growth, that's a game of survival. So when someone is starting any business, I still believe that a person needs to evaluate what is the kind of roles that that person needs to have in their team. What are the kind of team members that that person needs to start with. Now I know a lot of entrepreneurs say, but Rajiv, I don't have enough money to invest in the business to take on the burden of fixed salaries in the initial stages. So what if I'm starting solo? Well, if you're starting solo, then my biggest recommendation is that make sure that you are most focused on marketing and sales and getting the business. Now the trap that I see a lot of people who start solo get into is that they go out there, get the business, then they sit and take care of that customer personally by themselves. Then that becomes a vicious cycle. Because when they take care of a customer, once the servicing of that customer is done, then they have to go back and restart again to search for the next customer. So marketing and sales loses momentum and it has to be restarted from scratch again. So they end up in the spiral of go get a deal, then service the customer. Finish servicing the customer, there's nothing in the pipeline, go again, initiate the process of marketing again, go again, pitch for sales again, get the next customer, then take care of the customer. So they're always stuck in this survival at the same level then. Now, even if you're a solo entrepreneur, the way I would structure my starting journey would be, I would go get the deals, I would go get the leads, close the customers, get the customer, I will not service it myself. I would probably outsource it to another solo entrepreneur or to another freelancer. Now some people may say, but Rajiv, what if that freelancer then circumvents me? What if that solo entrepreneur takes away my customer? Well, I am doing this to prove to myself that I have the capacity and capability to generate leads and generate deals consistently. I will do this again and again and again and keep outsourcing the operations till I see a rhythm and consistency of marketing and sales, which will give me the confidence to say, now I can hire a full-time operational person myself. Now again, statutory warning, whatever I am sharing may not be relevant in the context of certain businesses. So the more specific questions you guys ask me, the more specific answers you will get from me. But I feel this is a good generic template for anybody to use even when you're starting solo. Prove the marketing and sales side for yourself, outsource the operations initially. Over a period of time, probably that outsourced person can become a partner if they're very good at capability of operations, or you look at hiring someone to do the same thing. Basically, all I'm saying is if you want to scale up a business, be marketing and sales focused, outsource the operations, build the cash flow for the business, start building a team after you have the cash flows if you do not have the initial investment capacity, And that's how, one department at a time, you start freeing yourself up and start building a second line of leaders. So it's a process, it's a journey, it's one department at a time, especially in the case of small, micro and medium entrepreneurs. I hope, Shaunak, that you get a way of how you should deal with your lack of investment capability in hiring a team right from the day one, based on the answer that I've given you. With that, we come to the end of this episode of Get Real with Rajiv. We've answered 4 questions, and now is the time for us to pick a winner for the week. So I'm going to ask Bhakti to quickly indicate for me, according to her, who should deserve to win this week's best question of the week. Okay, so I'm in full agreement with Bhakti, not because she's my wife, but I think she has an intelligent selection this week. And the winner for this week would be question number 1, which was Rohit, right?
Rohit Agarwal.
Yeah, Rohit Agarwal. Thank you for asking that question around how do you create a financial system for the financial growth of your team members. It just tells me that you're a leader with intent who wants to add value to your team members. So I love adding value to such entrepreneurs who have that intent to make a difference to their team members. So we're going to reach out to you, Rohit, and we're going to make sure that you receive a copy of my book, Lead or Bleed, for asking the best question of the week in episode number 45 of Get Real with Rajiv. With that, we come to the end of Get Real with Rajiv, and for those of you who watch this episode regularly, I need you to do the 2 things that I ask you to do every week. Number 1, send in your questions either in the comment section or in the WhatsApp number that you see flashing on your screen. Second, make sure you press the share button and share these videos with more people, because we really want our work to reach as many entrepreneurs so that we can add value to these entrepreneurs and live our mission of empowering entrepreneurs. So make sure you press the share button and make sure you ask questions for the subsequent weeks. With that, this is Rajiv Talreta signing off. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Get Real with Rajiv.